Welcome to Third Kits for All Part 4, and we're almost done with this series. It's actually going to be pretty interesting. In this video, we're going to be covering Kensa Collection 6, which is the Jet Squelcher, Clash Blaster, Bloblobber, and the Goo Tuber. And then after that, we have the last 4 weapons that I have not given a third kit that do not already have a third kit. So, let's get discussing. Kensa Jet Squelcher had a few different theme ideas that I ended up going with before I ended up choosing something to be more similar to Fire Control. So basically, a Jet Squelcher that would be more made for zones. I decided to give it Torpedo, since currently Custom Jet Squelcher has Burst Bomb, which is an insanely good sub-weapon to pair with it. And I felt another Jet Squelcher kit to be good would have to have another sub-weapon that can pair with it well. And Torpedo is another very similar thing to Burst Bomb. You could run a bit of sub power up and kind of have a distance throw it if it hits people, get quick kills with the Jet Squelcher, and just kind of have that extra pressure and painting presence, and then a 180p Suction Bomb Rush to be able to get a good chunk of specials, because while Jet doesn't paint exceptionally well, at a distance it paints alright. So it'd be able to get a good chunk of bomb rushes, so it could be very useful for shorter range zones maps. These include things like Mako Mart or Humpback, where it would be able to just be useful as that kind of backline option. Suction Rush would be pretty good for pushing in and putting in heavy painting and distance power, and matched it pretty well with Jet Squelcher's range. Both Torpedo and Suction Rush match that, and overall it'd be a good Jet Squelcher alternate for zones and maybe Clan Blitz if you really wanted to do Jet. I think it would be a kind of interesting option for Jet Squelcher to have, and overall I thought it was a pretty good idea. In the end, it still has weaknesses of still being kind of weak in terms of dealing with other modes, but Custom Jet exists for other modes, so it's all good. I think overall this is definitely a zone's powerhouse if that kit were to ever be released, and it would be really interesting to see. Clash Blaster is a kit that not everyone is going to like because it's themed after the 3.0 trailer. Because during the 3.0 trailer, there was a Clash in the background that used Burst Bomb and Splashdown. This is because Burst Bomb and Splashdown is the default kit, and that was before Clash Neo was released. So there was a bit of a panic in if Clash Neo was going to get Burst Bomb Splashdown. So I decided to give Kensa Clash Burst Bomb Splashdown because I thought it'd be funny. Honestly, it would pair pretty well with the main weapon, but Clash is a really weak weapon, and Splashdown's a really weak special, so it wouldn't really be insanely strong, it would just be really annoying. But the theme is still interesting, and I think a Clash with Burst Bombs would definitely be a pretty interesting combination. Splashdown's fine with it as well, I guess. I can combo with the blast shots, but not as well as the regular blaster. I think it would just be an interesting kit for it to get, and it would be pretty interesting to see just overall what would go with it. Overall weaknesses is a very bad special, and a very bad main weapon, so it'd probably still be pretty bad, but hey, maybe on a few TC maps it could actually be somewhat useful, unfortunately. But I think it would be an interesting kit idea for it to have. Burst Bombs would pair exceptionally well with Clash, since Clash Blaster shots are pretty similarly paired with it, and then in general I think it would work well. Splashdown would give a much more aggressive Clash, which would be an interesting option to make. Goo Tuber is themed around the idea of being able to spam a special. Now you might be thinking, why would you have Goo Tuber spam a special? It's a charger, it doesn't paint well, does it? Well, yeah. For whatever reason, they made this thing paint insanely well. I don't know why, but like, yeah. That's a thing. So I gave it 190p because 180 or 170 would be ridiculous, with Fizzy Bomb and Ink Storm. Fizzy Bomb would be helpful for poking in neutral. It would overall just give you a tool like behind corners or just to poke or pressure zone, extra paint. And then Ink Storm would be pretty good to spam in zones. So overall it could be pretty useful for moving people away from the zone, putting constant paint as you can double Fizzy Storm, double Fizzy, and the main weapon could paint pretty well. So basically it could be the idea of having a Goo Tuber that can spam special. Again, this would still suck, but I think it'd be an interesting kind of supportive option for it, since the other two Goo Tubers are pretty shit kits. So the idea that at least it can be spamming Storms and Fizzies into the zone might actually make it somewhat useful at, like, maybe low-level play, I don't know. But, again, it's still a Goo Tuber, so there isn't too much to say here. And then Bloblobber. Bloblobber is literally a bubble bath, so I gave a Bubble Blower. And then for the sub, I ended up giving a Torpedo, which is a very similar kit to another weapon in this game, which is the Kensa Jr. Now, you'll have to forgive me about it because I don't have Object Shredder, but one thing you can do is throw a Torpedo and then immediately explode bubbles on it if the Torpedo locks onto something. And that will instantly blow up a bubble if you have Object Shredder. This is an insanely strong combo, and on a 190p Bloblobber, you could be getting it quite a lot. So not only could it put constant distance pressure just by being a blob, but having those bubbles with an insta-pop combo could be really useful for defending itself or pushing into a zone. I think having that kind of ridiculous sub-special combo could be really helpful for Blob to actually get shit done. Because one of the main problems is Blob is just really fucking vulnerable. It's a slow weapon, it's really easy to rush it down, and it's not too strong. So if I were to be rushed down and all of a sudden I have my bubbles ready, I can just torp bubble, you're dead. And that would be a kind of interesting thing for it to have. It could allow it to move up a little bit more, and overall could still be an objective use special just to kind of help your team push in, since it would be able to control bubbles fairly well. Also, being able to shoot out bubbles in both the main and special would be kind of funny to watch. But I think it would be really interesting. Overall, besides the Jet Squelcher and Blob, the other two kits aren't really too strong, and Blob is still pretty weak of a main weapon to be pairing it with, but that kind of insane kit could maybe help it see some zones or clan blitz use. Overall, these are still some interesting kits to come up with, and I like what ended up happening with them. As usual, the cards and their designs are in the description below, and I'd be loving to hear what you guys think will be the next 4 kits, because the last 4 weapons to cover was the Sheldon's picks for the Hydra Splatling, Ballpoint Splatling, Splash-O-Matic, and Rapid Blaster Pro. And with that, this series will be done, which I had this idea back in Splatoon 1 for a 3rd Kits for All and never did anything with it, so honestly was pretty happy to be able to go through this. Please go and check out the thread for all the other kits. Let me know what you guys think of this, and I will see you all in about 2 weeks in regards to videos of this type when the last ones are out. Until then, going to be doing maybe a collab with someone else regarding another topic about Brellas, and probably some more gameplay video now that I'm back from LISS, so that should be pretty interesting.